The Illinois General Assembly approving 68 bills yesterday to advance to Governor J.B. Pritzker's desk. That's after they passed 13 bills on the day before. So we're looking at what? About 70, 80 bills so far that have been passed. We're just getting started, folks. I'm Greg Bishop, Associate Editor for Illinois for the Center Square. You can wake up with headlines in your inbox. Go to the website, thecentersquare.com. Sign up for the newsletter. Make Illinois specific, and you can get those Illinois headlines. You can also wake up with us here with Illinois in Focus. Join the chat room live and get that rundown of what's going on here in Illinois. All right, so 68 bills they passed yesterday. It's a lot of legislation. These are bills that passed one chamber into the next and then passed out of that chamber onto the governor. So we're going to have a busy summer as is with, 80-plus bills that have been signed or that have been approved out of both chambers before they get signed, and we've got several more days to go. I'm anticipating hundreds more bills could pass, including dozens today, dozens tomorrow, when they come back next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Dozens more are going to pass each one of those days, if not 100 plus, and then we're going to get the budget. Then we're going to get a whole bunch of other things. Possible tax increases. That's what Republicans are decrying and trying to warn against. But you've also got tons of other policy that impacts taxpayers. In particular, you've got a policy about the prevailing wage. And again, you can go to thecentersquare.com and find all these headlines. For instance, the Illinois wage bill may shift projects to other states, according to an Illinois state senator. Let's go ahead and pull this story up from the Senate yesterday, where Senator Jason Plummer was critical of the measure here from State Senator Christopher Belt that would say, essentially, whatever the federal minimum wage doesn't matter if Illinois' minimum wage is higher than the federal minimum wage. So it could inflate federal projects in the state of Illinois. Here's Plummer.
There's a lot of areas in Illinois where we could use some federally funded projects, but $10 million here, $1 million there, $100 million there, it only goes so far. If we drive up the costs, we're going to be able to get fewer projects done, thereby harming our constituents. Are you concerned about the impact this legislation could have on that issue?
Senator Belt.
Thank you for the question, Senator, but I really don't think that's the issue. Other states are currently doing it. Missouri Department of Transportation right now implements this. Minnesota, California, and Washington are among 3 other states that right now implement this.
Plummer not satisfied with that answer, still pushing that this is going to inflate costs, which will crowd out resources for other projects.
So what this bill does is it makes it more expensive for the federal government to invest in Illinois. Therefore, they're going to invest in other states where their dollar stretches further, where they can get more road projects done for the same amount of money, where they can get more bridges built for the same amount of money.
So again, the concern being that inflated costs means fewer projects and also higher taxpayer costs because, well, you're paying for all of this.
We're living in a state that personifies in real time how the economy falls backwards and jobs disappear when it's more expensive to do business.
Now, Christopher Belt, Democrat state senator from Swansea, he laid out that he believes this measure is needed.
This legislation really is about fairness. It's about fairness to your neighbors, the people who live in your communities, about getting the fair wage that they deserve.
So you've got the measure advancing out of the Senate after it passed the House. That means it is ready to be sent to Governor J.B. Pritzker. Another measure that passed out of the Illinois General Assembly and can now be sent to the governor requires new school buses after, I believe, 2031 to have seat belts. Here's State Representative Bob Morgan, Democrat from Deerfield.
It's really not that notable in the sense that school buses are already pretty safe, and all new manufactured school buses already are really focusing on having having these 3-point seatbelts. It's going to keep our children safer.
So the question of cost came up from State Representative Patrick Windhorst. There were also questions about liability, and some may be critical of requiring seatbelt usage in school buses because that means that children might not be able to get out of the seatbelt if there's a serious emergency. So there's concerns there. Here is the back and forth between Patrick Windhorst, the Republican floor leader, and Bob Morgan.
We have a note that the Illinois School Transportation Association estimates the additional charge for the seat belts on a full-size bus ranges from $7,000 to $18,000. Are you aware of that estimate?
No, I'm not. And again, I think that the point there is a cost to having seatbelts in the bus.
Yeah, there is a cost, and that cost is going to ultimately be borne by the taxpayers because of the fact that taxpayers pay property taxes going to their schools in their area. So that cost, how many school buses, then you start seeing that rack up. But what do you pay for safety? All right. So the interesting debate, Morgan saying this really is about protecting kids.
This is really consistent with what all school bus manufacturers, especially the larger school bus manufacturers, are doing already. And with the 6-year phase-in, there's no known cost because this really is consistent with what they're already doing.
So again, what we're doing here is we're just reviewing some of the 68 bills that passed yesterday out of the House and the Senate that are queued up for the governor. All right. And a lot of them were, unanimous support. There were bills about, for instance, allowing for veterans to have easier access to time off so that they could take part in honors ceremonies for fallen soldiers. They could have, paid time off from work. There were other regulations about things concerning food benefits for veterans, these types of things moving through. Other things impacting specific school districts to allow them to operate how they want to operate and maybe being included in state statute that they weren't before. Tons of different policy, right? It's always fascinating to see where the debate comes from, though. And in particular, you've got a policy about warehouse safety that ultimately was approved by both chambers yesterday. State Representative Katie Stewart, a Democrat from Edwardsville, led that charge on this warehouse safety measure. And this comes after a violent tornado wrecked an Amazon warehouse in southern Illinois, killing several people. And it sparked a conversation several years ago to bring about more warehouse safety, but here we are a couple of years later. Kind of shows you how slow the General Assembly can be to actually address something like this. Here's Katie Stewart.
We want to make sure that the warehouses have a site-specific safety plan and that safety plan is shared with local first emergency responders. So that's the first part. The second part has to do with the building specifications on any new builds, and I want to point out that everybody has been brought to neutral on those requirements. And then the third part has to do with making sure that we have building inspectors that are properly trained.
So you've got a variety of different things laid out there, right, about warehouse safety, making sure warehouse workers, if there's a tornado coming through, there's somewhere central they can go to protect themselves. But still some questions, in particular about the language of the law, the bill, what it's actually going to impact. State Representative Ryan Spain laying out that he's got, some questions of, well, what's considered a warehouse and what's not considered a warehouse.
In the discussions that we've had privately, you believe that based on the legislative text as written, that your bill is not written with the intention of including grain bins, fertilizer storage, other types of your warehousing of something, but it's not a place where people are working on a regular basis with inside those structures.
Correct. It's like a container for stuff, and we don't have people moving that stuff in and out on a regular basis every day. It's like I said, just a container holding a product.
Right.
That's not intended to be included.
So the debate continued on yesterday with the warehouse safety measure, and State Representative C.D. Davidsmeyer, a Republican from Murrayville, said that he wants to make sure that it's clear who is and who is not a warehouse worker, especially in places like silos.
Elevator, you have a grain bin where most of the time nobody's in there.
Right.
But with these hoop buildings and things of that sort, you do have people that are in and out of there moving material around. And so I want to make sure that as we move this forward that we're not including those because normally there's an office right nearby or something of that sort.
So that place, Stewart says, is a place where people can go, and if they're not in a warehouse, then they're not going to be considered warehouse workers.
They would not be considered a warehouse worker, and so the expectation would not be that their safe location is probably within that office space and doesn't need to be within that warehouse.
So clearly, some of the measures passing, the different types of policy changes that they're wanting to bring about, and all of this is the legislative process. You know, we talked briefly yesterday, just kind of going back to Schoolhouse Rock years, how a bill becomes a law, right? And maybe it's important to highlight how we have three branches of government. Right now, we're focused on the Illinois legislature, the legislative branch of government, the ones who write bills to pass, which then go to the executive branch, which in Illinois is controlled by Governor J.B. Pritzker. And Governor J.B. Pritzker has the authority to sign the legislation that the first branch of government, the legislature, passes, and he's supposed to execute on those measures and make sure that he's following the law that the legislature passed. But when you get to the third branch of government, the judicial branch of government, they also play a role in all of this, including when questions are raised about how laws are being interpreted, especially by courts. In particular, there was a case heard yesterday by the Illinois Supreme Court concerning the Pretrial Fairness Act. And this is a story that we've been tracking here, and you can follow along at the Center Square and look up Pretrial Fairness, and you'll be able to see all kinds of stories. But yesterday, the Illinois Supreme Court had a case of an individual who's in jail pre-trial, but she was arrested in 2023 after the state ended cash bail statewide. This woman was arrested having a stolen vehicle. She was released from jail after being processed because the state did not ask for her to be detained. And pre-trial, she had court hearings. Well, she didn't show up to several court hearings, got arrested again after failing to appear, and then was let out of jail again after being processed, and then continued to miss court dates, and then was arrested where a judge finally said, you're staying behind bars pre-trial. Well, she took this case all the way to the Illinois Supreme Court. Here is her public defender saying that the lower courts, they got it wrong, and her client should be out pre-trial.
With regard to sanctions, the legislature balanced the policy considerations and determined that at most a 30-day jail sentence should be the penalty for missing a court date. It's not the role of judges to rebalance those policy considerations because they think missing court is more serious than the legislature does. Trial courts can also use other conditions of pretrial release, such as electronic monitoring, to get a criminal defendant to come to trial, to come to court.
So ultimately, her argument is that
when a judge,
the judges can't interpret their own interpretation. They have to follow what the legislature is intending. And the question is, though, how many times can people miss court before they're actually considered, somebody that needs to be held pre-trial? We don't have cash bail anymore. We don't have, she probably, I don't know the means that she has, but could she have bailed herself out? And then if she starts missing court dates, then, the state has money that she's going to be held liable for and ultimately face further charges for not showing up to court, which is what happened in this case. But she was ultimately, after multiple times not showing up to court, said the judge going, we need to keep you behind bars pending trial because clearly you're not taking this serious. So the assistant state's attorney representing the state making the case that the Pretrial Fairness Act allows for somebody who skips out on court to be held pending trial.
when a judge is satisfied that the evidence shows that a defendant will not appear in court, regardless of the condition, when the evidence indicates that, the judge has the inherent authority to deny pretrial release.
So the question is now under advisement at the Illinois Supreme Court. They'll make a decision on that in the weeks or months ahead as to whether this individual should remain pretrial. And jail or if they should be released because of the Pretrial Fairness Act. Again, we ended cash bail statewide several years ago, and just to kind of wrap up the Statehouse roundup here, because it's not just the legislature involved here, it's the executive executing the laws and then the judicial branch getting involved. Last week, Republicans, they held a news conference saying that the Safety Act and the Pretrial Fairness Act that's included in the Safety Act are broken and need to be fixed. And Republican State Representative Patrick Windhorst said that cash bail needs to return to the state of Illinois.
We have called for, just to be clear, a restoration of cash bail. There was a Supreme Court commission that talked about we could do a hybrid system that includes cash bail with also more times you can not using monetary bail. But what I think is important is we need to make sure the detention net includes all offenses that are felony offenses if we're going to keep this system.
So we have an interesting kind of line of a trajectory of what to expect with a lot of this legislation that goes through. What else are we possibly going to see before the end of the week? It's hard telling. I mean, they've got hundreds of bills that are queued up to pass to the governor. Are they going to pass all of those? Not sure. We'll keep you updated. Get the headlines in your inbox at thecentersquare.com. Wake up with us here each and every weekday morning for Illinois in Focus Daily, and find the podcast where you get podcasts. Just search Illinois in Focus and you'll find it.